Welcome to the Honorable Minister of Justice, member of media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, online viewers, respective radio stations island-wide, Tel TV Plus Channel 15. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Justice, Natalie Tacklin, to address you. Minister Tacklin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Good morning to Emile and to everybody, of course, viewing at home, and to the people of St. Martin and the staff of DCOM here with us today as well. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to share updates on the important work taking place within the Ministry of Justice. Today, my remarks will be brief, yet I find it important to show up, even when there's not much to announce, because consistent communication is part of how we build trust and accountability. In the coming week, the ministry will begin the rollout of a new initiative that represents a major step forward in strengthening our detention sector. While I reserve the full details for its official launch next week, I can say that it reflects months of planning, collaboration, commitment, and meaningful reform. In preparation, representatives from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the UNODC, will be meeting with local partners to advance key objectives and support rehabilitation, safety, and sustainability within our justice system. At the same time, the United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, as we've come to call it, is gearing up to officially start the construction of the new prison facility. More information will be shared in the coming days, but I can assure the people of St. Martin that progress is being made. To address challenges associated with scooter riders, the police force of St. Martin has been implementing its strategic plan. As part of this ongoing effort, KPSM has become more active in conducting night controls at locations frequently visited by scooter riders. These operations also focus on preventing and reducing illegal firearm and drug activity. For operational and security reasons, details of the plan will not be disclosed to the public. However, it is important to note that a similar initiative was carried out in the past with positive results. Building on that experience, KPSM is now preparing to execute a similar version of this strategy in the future to further strengthen public safety and maintain order across the community. With that being said, before closing, I do wish to extend my deepest condolences to the families and the loved ones of Mr. D. Labadie, who unfortunately lost his life in a tragic accident with a scooter, actually. Losing a loved one is never easy, and may his family find strength and comfort during this difficult time. Thank you as always, and I remain open for Emile's questions.
Thank you, Minister, for your opening remarks. If you have just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. We now move on to the question and answer session. And Emily of Alanity Radio, you have the floor.
Good morning, listeners. Good morning, Minister. Since it's just the two of us, this could be a bit more conversational. So
Definitely.
Great. I recently did have a chance to visit the prison and speak to an inmate to get some insights. And so I understand that you're rolling out something soon, but I do have a number of questions. In previous communications with your office, it was mentioned that there's 300 years of sentences waiting to be served. But I've heard conflicting stories that say, no, it's 300 people waiting for sentences to be served. That's a big difference. Can you clarify, is it years, people?
Yeah.
What's the number we're really looking at?
It is years, as at least that's the number that has been communicated to my office by the prosecutor's office, because as we know, the prosecutor is the authority in charge of the execution of prison sentences. And indeed, the way that they've kept track of this is not necessarily expressed in a number of people, but in if we had to accumulate all those years of sentences, I think right now we're at 300 or maybe even 400 plus.
Okay. And the current number of cells, I think, was about 89, 90 cells?
Correct. Well, we're at a capacity of 80 when it comes to the men, and for women at 6 So we're 80, and then of course we have capacity for 15 in the police cells. But of course that is capped at a maximum of 10 days that we're authorized or legally allowed to.
Okay.
keep
And the
them there.
new construction will add then another how many cells?
So eventually we will double. So we're expecting phase 1 to be complete in Q1 2027. Phase 1 of the facility will take us from the current 80 to 120. And at the completion of phase 2, which will be a year later in 2028, we will be at a total of 196.
Okay. And so based on the number of years that you have outstanding and based on the construction, you anticipate you will have sufficient cells for the current needs?
Well, so the numbers were calculated also based on at least the way that we got to that sweet spot of 196. This was before my time, of course, but from what I was explained was we looked at, of course, the anticipation of, where do we expect crime to go? What is the horizon for that? But on top of that, more importantly, what can we afford as a country? I know that there are old reports from the Council of Law Enforcement from years ago, which indicate, that we would need around 300 cells. However, that's not a number that we as a country can sustain and can actually afford to pay for. So we looked at kind of regional averages, what is expected and what type of trends are being expected, and then more importantly, what would be the pressure of that on the national budget and what could the country responsibly sustain. And that's how that number of 196 was chosen.
Okay. So in the current environment with so many sentences waiting to be served, I've spoken with some police officers, and there is a sense that there's a level of sort of minor enforcement that feels like it's not really worth their effort to do, because even if we catch people, even if they're convicted, they're not going to serve time. That understanding also pervades through the community, which also creates a sort of feeling that, well, we could push the envelope because chances of us serving time are limited. So how is the lack of cell capacity affecting that justice level in the community? How is that, in practical terms, impacting the level of crime in our community?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as from that justice perspective, the ideal for me as well is, that there are consequences to every type of action, whether that be a fine, whether that be, I was reading an article the other day where in the Netherlands, a lot of sentences that were executed were short sentences for individuals who had failed to pay fines or civil liability, that then they convert that into a sentence. And I think you get better compliance when it comes to people paying fines if the minute you don't pay that fine, you spend a night or a couple of days in a police cell. So of course, that is, I think, a space we would like to get to. And indeed, looking at, I think it's not just a capacity issue with the prison necessarily, but it's also a capacity issue in terms of resources that we have. We're also right now, we have technical assistance requests out to the Netherlands to ask for extra capacity when it comes to detective work, so that we're able to not only focus on the big things, but also to be able to look, like you said, at those more minor infractions, because, now you're kind of having to focus on the more blockbuster, bigger matters that really affect the social fabric more than the minor ones. But I think on the long term, our vision is that even those minor infractions need to be addressed, because I think you start at the small things and from there it adds up. So what is the effect? I think indeed we are seeing more of that effect, but at the same time, we've had a capacity issue it's nothing new. It's nothing that happened this year. It's been at least since 2017. From after Irma, we actually lost cell capacity. And of course, as a result of litigation and court cases and human rights standards, those numbers have also shifted over time. So it's nothing new. We talk about it a lot these days. I think it's getting a lot of attention, but it's been pervasive within the society for the past 10 years, at least more.
You had mentioned in previous press conferences about generating statistical reports to really measure, indeed, has the level of crime increased over the years?
Right.
Have you had a chance to complete that those reports?
We are still finalizing those numbers. We do have some data, that at least when it comes to, of course, we're in October right now. We have the data at least for the end of last year when it comes to, for example, robberies with use of a firearm. We haven't put these out as yet, but I can give you a little bit of a preview of that. We do see a larger number. The number is far higher for 2024 as it is for 2025. However, the types of robberies have changed. We're seeing more jewelry stores, more hotels, and in that sense, we feel like it's more in your face than when it was maybe the Chinese supermarket, maybe it was a home invasion that you don't hear about as much. So the data, if we compare last year to this year, was higher last year than it is this year currently. But in that sense, I don't necessarily want to let the data just speak. And in the coming days and weeks, we are working on a strategic plan for the high season. I want to ensure everyone that St. Martin is a safe destination, that it is a safe place to vacation, that it's a safe place to live. And we're putting a lot of emphasis and focus into that right now. And I think over the next days, weeks, and months, that we will see visibly what steps we're taking as a justice sector, and especially from within the police force, but also within the other departments within the chain. It's important to us that we have a chain approach to this, and that we also bring in, immigration, bring in customs. This isn't just a police task.
So I noticed the Prime Minister's come in, but I was on a line of questioning. So if you don't mind, Minister, and I'll sort of jump to, in my conversation with one of the inmates, a suggestion was made that I thought was a very interesting suggestion. The schools are looking for food programs to help. There's children who are going to school without enough to eat. The prison has kitchen facilities. The inmates are happy to wake up earlier, and said, look, they could participate by learning skills, learning how to work in a restaurant type setting, produce food, and use that food to support the child feeding program for the schools. Are you open to those types of cooperations?
Absolutely. And we've had those thoughts. We looked at a program Bonaire actually is offering similarly to this, where they're making sandwiches for the schools. So we are looking into that and the logistics of how we could implement something like that. What type of funding would be required in order to implement that? And it's also part of, as I said, I'm excited for next week, where you will also be invited, and I know we're also going to be doing a radio tour and informing the public of what this wider umbrella of detection sector reform actually means. And part of that are those soft components. And that is where we're partnering with the UNODC, and we're looking at other avenues to be able to provide these types of activities within the prison.
And last question is, I understood that because of outstanding payments, that the therapy for inmates, the mental health support, is not currently active because there's outstanding payments to the organizations that provide that. Can you comment to that? Because if any group on the island needed that support, it would be the inmates.
Yeah, so that one is high on my priority list as well. And we are actually working together with some of those organizations to understand where those outstandings come from, if we could enter into some type of arrangement into the future and a payment plan on the balance that is there. Additionally, I have secured funding to conduct a baseline study within the prison, because of course everyone has different needs. So the question is, what type of care do we need to offer? So we do have funding secured in order to bring in a professional to be able to make an assessment of what the necessities are and what requirements we would have to put in place. So that's a part of this larger picture as well. And I understand very well for the individuals that are currently detained that it's a long wait. And I've continued to say, I can't just say, oh, we're building this new facility. And it's why it's important, that that program is starting next week. The UNODC is here on an initial fact-finding mission. They have hired a program manager that is going to be full-time here on the island. And that's going to be bringing all of these different components together. And it's remained important to me that we do see progress and that we do have programs and activities launched prior to the opening of the new facility. We need to give something to the individuals that are currently incarcerated, and we have to help them to reintegrate into society. So that's very much been our focus. But what I've learned here as well is that things take time, and it's, I keep saying, since I've been minister, it's like I'm in a time machine, and the time just flies by, and you look around and you're like, why are things taking so long to progress? But I know that while it's taking time to move, that in the wider vision, that I hope everyone can bear with me and trust me on this all really coming together beautifully, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm very proud of the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Minister Tacklin. Yes. Thank you, Emil. I would now like to welcome and invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Marcelino, to address you. Prime Minister Marcelino, you have the floor.
Members of the media, good morning, and also, of course, the people of St. Martin, good morning, and the members of the DCOM also, of course, good morning. I will have some general statements to make to keep the people of St. Martin informed. Last Friday, I held a productive meeting with the Monsieur Cyril Le Velay of Saint Martin and Saint Barthélemy. The discussions that we had with each other was, of course, a strengthening of our cooperation between both sides of the island, and particularly focusing on more synchronization of emergency management and public safety. We also addressed, for example, a better alignment of the color codes for emergencies on both sides of the island, and also to ensure that both sides of this country respond uniformly during severe weather events or disasters. Additionally, we discussed updates also on the emergency broadcast system for the Dutch side. As you know, the French side initiated that already. They are in functioning of that system already. We are busy setting it up to make it to introduce it in practice for the community of St. Martin. And also for that reason, because they implemented it already, we are trying to synchronize and coordinate that project together, so we are very uniform in approach of this broadcast system for the island of St. Martin, seeing it's one island and one people. This is, of course, to ensure and reflect our ongoing collaboration to ensure the safety and well-being of our residents. We are always talking about our collaboration with our northern neighbors. In this case, we decided that we will have structurally a quarterly meeting between the Dutch and the French side to continue focusing on uniformity and collaboration, for us to get closer and closer to each other, for us to be in the perception of one people and one country. That is what we all want on this peaceful island. Concerning regional and international security, as we all know, there is an increase in the tension in the Caribbean and the northern part of the South America, being the tension between the United States and Venezuela, with a lot of presence of U.S. Navy in the Caribbean. And to that action, I decided to, I'm going to send a letter to the Kingdom government after a recent meeting already that I had with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Dick Schoof, at the United Nations General Assembly in New York recently. I decided that I'm going to send a letter, given the geographical proximity and unique geopolitical position of St. Martin. I do believe that we have to stay, and that is my responsibility of Prime Minister of St. Martin, to remain proactive in matters of regional security and preparedness. The letter will reinforce our commitment to coordination within the Kingdom on defense and security matters, ensuring that St. Martin's interest and safety are adequately represented. I have also an upcoming visit to Suriname. As you know, it's in November. It will be the 50th anniversary of the Republic of Suriname with their independence. and I'm planning to honor that invitation, and we will be present there to represent St. Martin on that official day. I will be attending as part of the kingdom. I will also be able to make use of that presence opportunity that I would like to speak with the Minister of the Economic Affairs of Suriname. And also I would like to meet with the Minister of Agriculture. I have discussed that already with the Minister of TIAD, because we would like to see the possibility how we can get a more direct communication between the Republic of Suriname and St. Martin. And the other side, you know, Suriname is more advanced in agriculture than we are, and they have the luxurious position that they have a lot of land too. And also in New York, I met with the president, Mrs. Simmons, Geerlings Simmons, and I discussed with her already the possibility and option if we can start exploring land in Suriname with the option of focusing on agriculture products to import in St. Martin. So I would like to give follow-up also to that topic once I'm in Suriname. Further, just for informing, tomorrow is Thursday, the 23rd of October. I have an invitation for a closed-door parliamentary session in which, in a closed-door session, details will be discussed about the status that we are in now with the GEBE. So tomorrow, this meeting will provide an opportunity actually to update members of parliament on the latest development within the company and to discuss the steps forward to ensure transparency, accountability, and stability. In that way, we also, in that meeting in parliament, I will also go with a delegation consisting on representatives of the supervisory board of GB will also be accompanying me in that meeting, and also with the managerial board will also be represented in that meeting. So tomorrow we will have a parliamentary meeting, and I think it's important for the people of St. Martin to know that tomorrow we have that meeting. And of course, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister Amo.
If it's possible.
Thank you. Good morning, Prime Minister. A couple issues since you first brought up GB. I know personally, and I've heard from many, that there are still problems with invoices starting from the period where the hack to GB was to date, that in between, people are still reporting that invoices are missing despite requests for those invoices to be furnished. They're not furnished, or invoice amounts that are incorrect. Can you update us a bit on what GB's efforts are to straighten out that those invoices from that period?
That statements that you're hearing about the inaccuracy of the bills, the transparency or not of the billing system, I have been hearing that a lot too. And since that I'm hearing that, and being Prime Minister of St. Martin, I have been having meetings with GEBE on this topic. The GEBE constantly assured me that they are working to make their invoice system more and more accurate at this particular moment. So as you are hearing it on the street, in the same intensity, I am constantly in meetings with GEBE. Even the Council of Ministers had a meeting with GEBE on this topic, and I'm on them constantly to tell them that I still hear from the community that there is still some inaccuracy on the billing, the invoices that the consumers are receiving. It has my attention. I'm not the management of GEBE. People have to understand that. Constantly, everything that happens in GEBE, of course, everybody direct themselves to the Prime Minister. I am with my government the shareholder of GEBE. If you know the rules of corporate governance, Between me and the management, there is still a layer being the supervisory board. So my communication line is all my concerns that I have, my vision plans from me or from my government, directions that I would like to have with GB has to go through the supervisory board, and they have then the responsibility to delegate it to the managerial board of the company. But for sure, I'm aware of still information that I'm getting from the community that there is still some unhappiness concerning the inaccuracy of bills, and constantly I am attending the supervisory board about the information that I'm receiving. And constantly they are engaging and committing to improve their accuracy of their billing. And that is as far as I can go until now.
Thank you. Can you update us? Has GB ordered new generators, the large megawatt generators that Holland lent money to St. Martin to buy? Have they been ordered yet?
Yeah, they are now in the phase we had to, because there was a high preference to continue, because the personnel of GEB is very well educated with the brand Wärtsilä. GB's history is based on the brand Wärtsilä. The knowledge how to deal with Wärtsilä is there. The connections are there. The type of accessoires that has to be ordered are known for GB. So there is a whole culture already around Wärtsilä brand. We made use of deviating possibility in the contabiliteitslandsverordening. And now we are in the step that we have already put the connection and the contacts with Wärtsilä, and we are now negotiating on the purchase of the generators. So that is the process that we're in already. We are ready by the fabric.
So, given St. Martin's long history and relationship with Wärtsilä, will St. Martin still be using any sort of a middleman broker in that process, or will St. Martin or GB purchase the generators directly from Wärtsilä, thereby saving commissions or fees if a middle person's involved?
Yes. As you can recall, we have gotten the loan from the Netherlands, the 42 million, to order the generators. There were no conditions to the loan. I continue repeating that, except that it had to be paid in 25 years back. And there was a very low interest rate of 2.43%. That was very known. I said it from day one. These were the only two conditions. But there was an extra 1 million that they called a 1 million to subsidize and finance the technical assistance in guiding GB in the crisis that we were in and still are in with energy supply for the country. And in that 1 million is also the condition to appoint an expert that is going to be guiding the whole project of purchasing and installing of the new generators. As you know, that's a very complex process, but that is the idea of the technical assistance that has been subsidized with a 1 million extra loan to GEB, and that money is going to be used to guide the whole technical process until the generators are installed. And in this case, GB is going to do it directly with Wärtsilä. That is how we're going to do it.
Great. And previously, you had mentioned, because the country's still running on 12 or 20 containerized generators that are running on diesel fuel. Previously, you had stated that the diesel fuel price is higher than the fuel oils that they were using, but that GB would absorb the difference in the fuel clause.
Yes.
Is that still in place?
That is still in place, to my information, that is still being absorbed by GEBE.
Okay. Great. I noticed today there was signing in the paper about assistance for people who are challenged with paying bills, and GB is financing that. But I refer back to a document, the RAC, the Regulatory Authority of Curaçao, where they refer to over a period of 2022 to 24, a total surplus, and then it's been conveniently blacked out, that extra profits were made because the fuel clauses were too high. My understanding is that amount is about 12.6 million guilders that was overpaid because of a, let's say, funny calculations in the way the fuel clause was applied. So if you compare the 12.6 million guilders to the aid that's being given, they don't really line up at all.
But I think there are some misunderstandings. To start with, the government of St. Martin do want a relief for the invoices of GB. We want a tariff relief. That's one. Secondly, the first thing we did was a request for a RAC BTP report to see, okay, give us the reality of the tariffs. What is it all about? And the question was from government, is there some space to actually reduce the prices that we charge to the consumers? At the end of the day, as you know, the report came with some suggestions indicating that there is space to do a reduction in the tariffs that the consumer is receiving at home. As a shareholder, I cannot oblige the managerial board to do anything, but because I'm the shareholder, respecting the corporate governance rules. So I have given them some instructions to see some indications about all the suggestions that the RAC BTP has suggested to mitigate the high prices of the invoices. As you know, if you look back, as a government, we got resistance from the supervisory board, stating to us as shareholders that they're not going to actually honor my request to lower the fuel prices. So the intention of the Prime Minister and the government of St. Martin is still to help the people of St. Martin, although we are getting resistance. That is one. Secondly, we have to still regulate officially the tariffs. Until now in St. Martin, there is not a regulator for the tariffs. As long there is no regulator for the tariffs, the GEBE has the freedom a little to go along with the ideas about tariffs. But if you have a regulator, the regulator is then officially in the authorized entity that can control, as we have the fuel prices by the gas station. The Minister of TIAC can determine the prices. That should be the same for electricity for our country. And that is the reason that officially we decided that the BTP will become the official regulator for the energy tariffs prices that is being sold to the market, to the consumers. Of course, we have to go a step further because actually it all has to be translated in a national ordinance, and we are working on that to get that as soon as possible organized, that we get a regulator at place to regulate at the end of the day on a responsible, transparent and reliable way the tariffs that are being charged to the consumers. Good. So once you have the regulator too, it controls a little. For example, if I find that the tariffs are too high and GB finds that's not the case, I'm still a little stuck with the good intention that I have until now to instruct them and ask them, come with recommendation. But if they don't want to follow them, that is happening now, it's not going to happen. Okay. And that is the reason that we came with this establishment of this regulator in the form of the entity BTP. BTP accepted already to be it. In Curaçao, BTP has been it for very long. Only the name changed and became RAC. So they are also in contact with Curaçao for expertise, etc., that it becomes a very professional unit in the BTP. Well, next to that now we have, okay, what is going to be the future? As you know, we always from day one spoke about a program that GB proposed for them to invest 600,000 guilders to give relief to the most vulnerable. That discussion started in my office months ago already. That is an initiative from GEBE. I have presented that also in Parliament. It's not something new. I have spoken about that proposal in Parliament already, in which there was actually 50,000 guilders per month that GB wanted to use to give relief to the most vulnerable in our community. And that is the article that came out yesterday, that is an initiative of GEBE to at least try to help the most vulnerable. And how can you select the most vulnerable is to make use of the assistance of the Social Affairs Department that have a good overview of the group of most vulnerable in our society. And that's why GB did it in cooperation with the Social Affairs Department, and that is the article that came out, I think, this morning in the newspaper and yesterday on the social media. That's two. Next to the most vulnerable group, there is still people that work but are challenged because of high energy bills. That is the group now that government has been speaking about a long time already, but that is not the only group that is represented by what has happened for the most vulnerable, because we know this challenge of GB is not only for the vulnerable group that has been registered by the Social Affairs Department. No, it's more than that. And that's why we are looking now, and we are busy with that program to see now, to set up a project in which we're going to see how can we on a broader base give assistance, seeing that the most vulnerable group are being taken care of already by that initiative project from GEBE. We are not going back to that group. That group is taken care of already. We're going to see now the other group above that group that are very, very challenged financially, seeing the tariffs, the height of the tariff, to see how we can help that group. We are busy now with the criteria to see how we can do it. We have a whole group at place that is working on it, but it's very, very complex. How are you going to get to the real group above the ones registered with Social Affairs and still reach the right people that are in their need of more assistance? It's a very complex approach, but we are working on it to get it done, to see that we can start rolling it out as soon as possible. And that is just the most vulnerable group are being taken care of, and the group just above that group, seeing if we can supply and serve a huger group to help them.
Totally understand. Just wanted to be clear that that initiative was not the solution for the tariff
not a
discussion.
solution. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, just to make sure that I'm clear, you had previously requested GB to adjust tariffs. You got sort of stonewalled there. So you said, okay, we will try this a different way. We will tackle it via the BTP being appointed as the regulator for tariffs.
Yeah.
So BTP will then regulate, because there's a base tariff and then there's the fuel clause.
Yes.
So BTP will then be in charge of the combination of the two.
A vote.
Great. Understood.
Yeah. So there are three things going on now. The BTP as regulator,
Yes.
because if I help the people and GB increases the prices on me, actually I didn't help them.
Agreed.
So because of that, I have to approach the problem from different angles. I do it for the most vulnerable through the Social Affairs Department. There is a layer above that the government is now busy seeing how we can work it out to implement it. And we do it through the regulator to get good, a transparent and a reliable controlling of the utility prices for the community of St. Martin.
Great. So Prime Minister, I want to commend you actually on the speech that you gave at the Governor's Symposium.
Thank you.
For the people who are listening that may not have heard your speech, there is a sentence in here. We have built a system that looks impressive on paper, but financially and functionally is too heavy for our population size. You cannot build a nation without a professional treasury, strong human resources, and a balanced budget that reflects our true capacity. In previous press conferences, you've also said St. Martin's never really been able to produce a balanced budget. You're eighth or ninth in line of a series of prime ministers who haven't been able to do it. So I think that, again, I commend you because it's the truth.
It's a reality.
It's the reality. The question then is, based on this, again, I commend you a bold statement. What's the next step? How do you now take this statement and translate it into a question mark, an action related to government?
Very good question. We have to be realistic in this country. If we want to acquire a certain standard of socio-economic development, we will have to make some strong decisions now, as you say. Okay. As you said, we have been in the phase that we have been an autonomous country the past 15 years. We were not being able to balance our budget. We were not able to have a capex in our budget of significant amount to build on nation building. And on the other side, we have a lot of challenges because we want to work on nation progress, nation building. To do that, you need finance, and our financial status does not afford for what we are envisioning. But I still think it's possible, and I do believe in this difficult world in which all countries are looking for association and alliances with each other. Even the big countries, like you see the United States is looking for his alliances in Western Europe. Russia is looking for his alliance with the Chinese, for example. Everybody, even if they're big, they can take care of their own, they're still looking for alliance. So I think it's very logical for we, a small country, step off the illusion that we think that we can do it alone and see to start building alliances. There are two alliances that I will work towards too. The first one is alliance with other Caribbean islands. It's very important. As I told you, we have been isolating ourselves as islands. It's time now, and you see it now with the tariff war of the President of the United States, that we are obliged now to work to see how we're going to do import for our islands. So we have to know how things are being arranged in other countries. They can give us also suggestions and ideas. That's one. But I do believe there is a second chance for St. Martin in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And I think I'm the only politician that dare to say it, because I'm very honest and realistic, and I want the best for the people of my island. If we do that, we have to reconsider the agreements that we have in the kingdom. And it's sensitive, but I still think it's possible. One of them is we have to base our kingdom relationship for St. Martin, and I said it many times, not based on similarities, but on differences. If we acknowledge that we are different people, different country, living in different weather, climate conditions, if we accept from each other that we are different, that will make a total different dynamic of our relationship with the kingdom. Not based on similarities, but on differences. That is one of my ideas about the kingdom. Secondly, I think this kingdom is a kingdom that has to be more based on mutual respect and equality. We are not going the direction of equality and respect towards each other. And that has made the relationship in the past very difficult. And we all know that. But if we readjust our mindset for the kingdom, I think we can work on those two facets and we will get very far. There is a third factor in the kingdom, being stakeholder of a deal or co-owner of a deal. St. Martin has always been a stakeholder in the kingdom. I don't want to be a stakeholder having only a Dutch passport. I want to feel that I'm owner, partly owner of the kingdom. If you are an owner of a project, you're going to assume responsibility because it's yours. We never had that opportunity to have that feeling, and I believe that we have to work now on a kingdom based on co-ownership and not stakeholdership. I can give you an example. Stakeholdership is for me, give me a passport and thank you should be thankful that you're Dutch. Here is your passport. That is stakeholder. I look at the passport, I'm only Dutch. But what's in the deal for me? I have no ownership in the kingdom. I have even no say in the Kingdom Council of Ministers, but I just have the book, so I'm just a stakeholder. Co-ownership is, for example, we have about 8 universities, national universities in the Netherlands. All university has faculties. Why don't we put faculties also from those universities in the kingdom, other islands, St. Martin, or Curacao, Aruba. And then it's going to become great because, and they must not do that to help my people. Don't come with a faculty in St. Martin and think that you're helping my people. No, you're helping the kingdom. Because Jan in the Netherlands can also start his first year in St. Martin on the faculty. But my John can also start his first year, if he wants, in Groningen in the Netherlands. And both stand up in the morning and say, wow, I'm part of this kingdom, and I can even educate myself in the kingdom. I can start in St. Martin, I can start in Curacao, and I can start in the Netherlands. That is what I call co-ownership. I can give you a second example. There is a military base here in St. Martin. The young people, we are complaining that they have no discipline, they're sitting on the motorbikes and they're unemployed. I'm asking, let us be part of the kingdom, and we have a navy, right? Why don't we make it an educational center for the navy, for the kingdom? One, they get a job, they get a uniform, they get 2 flags on their arm. One is St. Martin and one is the kingdom, and they have a future, they can maintain their family, and they have a career. This young gentleman that is going to be paid by the Navy is going to get an education, is going to get discipline, and can take care of this family. His shift in sentiment will be from co-stakeholdership to co-ownership. I think these are 2 perfect examples of way for us to look at another way to the kingdom. And I think these are shifts that has to take place for St. Martin to have a second chance as an autonomous country in the kingdom. A third one is a political dialogue platform. We are all running with the IPCO and the CCARE. We are going to the Netherlands, and always it's going to be an emotional confrontation between the overseas territories and the Netherlands. I want a political dialogue platform not only to sit with the Dutch in times of conflict, but in times of structurally sitting with each other to shape the future of the kingdom. Not coming to each other, deliberating only when we have conflicts. No, let's use this platform as a common, respectful, equivalent kingdom in which we are shaping together the future of the kingdom. One more is, I think, if we go for that approach, I thought good about it, we have to level up justice, education, and healthcare to kingdom level. For the king to stand and look at his kingdom and say, as a king, I have a kingdom in which the healthcare in all parts of my kingdom are of very great level for the people of my country. My education is at high standard level, my healthcare is at high standard level, and my justice is at high standard level for the people of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. That is what I call equality. If we can turn this cooperation and relationship, St. Martin has a brilliant future in this world.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So as I understand what you're saying is the next step based on your statement would be renegotiating in the understandings, the agreements with the kingdom. Would this be something that St. Martin would do alone, or would this involve Aruba, Curacao, for example? And politically, I'm not clear, does this require parliamentary approval? Do you need referendums? And what sort of timeline are you sort of envisioning?
No, of course, this is a matter of time. If you talk of mindset change for the populace of your people, the mentality of your people, it takes time. And of course, it only can happen if all noses are in the same direction. First of all, the people have to understand the concept. And secondly, it has to be carried in parliament that has to listen to the people too. So it's going to be some time on it. I have no problem to initiate this direction of evolution in the relationship in the kingdom. I think it's a great concept I have. And your first question, is it going to be in collaboration with Curacao or Aruba? I'm the Prime Minister of St. Martin, and my responsibility is for the people of St. Martin. And I am an autonomous country in the kingdom, And I decided in 10-10-10 that I didn't want to stay with the other islands, although I have a romantic, historic relationship with the other islands. But I decided 10-10-10 that I want to be an autonomous country. So I have to start now looking for my own people in St. Martin. But everything that I do, I will inform Curaçao and Aruba too that I will do. But in principle, we decided we didn't want Netherlands Antilles anymore. So if we make that political decision, I don't see why every time again we have to go to Curaçao and Aruba, because we decided already that we didn't want that, right? So we have to carry the consequences of adult decisions in life.
So again, just for clarity then, I mean, you have 3 years and plus some months in your term.
I think I have more.
Okay. But are you envisioning making structural changes within your term? Is this
what I'm trying to do is start with the small steps, see if I can align the vision for what I was just explaining to you. And I cannot do it on my own. I have to start informing, seeing if I'm going to get the backup. It's going to be carried broad. And then from there on, we're going to move on with my biggest responsibility for my country is, given the circumstances that we have St. Martin, in which establishment I'm going to take the best care of the people of my country. And until now, with the conditions and situation that we're in now, I do not see that independence can do that for St. Martin. And because I don't see that, I have to be honest with my people too, seeing the challenges that I am confronting every day, that I think there should be another way for us to elevate the socioeconomic status of this country. And that's why I was envisioning that. But that is a vision from the Prime Minister as Luc Marcelina. It's not a conclusion and representation of the concept of government. Let us not misunderstand each other.
Sure.
But I'm trying as a leader, of course, also to see what are the options to improve the socioeconomic status of the people of my country.
So if I might, last question then. In a sense, government has adopted a mantra of, yes, I would like to do X, but there's not money. There's not enough budget for it. Budget's insufficient. So your recognition that the system that's there is currently too expensive for the size that we are. So on the short term, before you achieve this vision that you've laid out, practically, how do we get through year to year when government is either too big and maybe needs to look at, and I think you misinterpreted the question last time, not about the number of positions, seats, jobs that it has, but maybe the functions that it does, that maybe government needs to say, we just can't handle that. So how do you make those choices in the short term until your vision becomes a reality?
And there are two, and we have always spoken about them, but we realize also all efforts we put in it, still we have a deficit in our budget, but we have to continue working on the revenues for government, and one of them is the tax. We have to actually have a tax reform. We have to see what we can do on tax implementation. We're talking now about the tourist levy, the tourist tax is one of them. There is different opinions about it. One of the other way we will have to increase our revenues if we realize that we have a deficit in income for the country. And secondly is also to be very, very sharp on our expenses of our country. These are the two. And while we are mitigating and trying to control those two, improving those two, there is a vision that has to born. Otherwise, we are always going to continue focusing on those two that has never give the result that we thought it would give. So there should be a third alternative. And that third alternative is what I just explained to you this morning.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Emil. That does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, member of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. For rebroadcast, tune into stmartingov.org, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, TEL-TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel, Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Roleika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.